I'm not sure where to start, but I guess I'll begin with the fact that I always thought I had a good marriage. My wife, Jessica, and I had been together for nearly 10 years, and while we had our ups and downs like any couple, I believed we had a solid foundation built on love, trust, and mutual respect. But somewhere along the way, things started to feel off. At first, it was subtle. She began to change her tone on the phone when she thought I wasn't listening. When I'd walk into the room, she'd abruptly end her conversations, and I'd notice a shift in her demeanor. She used a new voice when talking on the phone, like she was someone else entirely, or maybe I'd forgotten how she sounded. I shrugged it off, attributing it to stress from work or whatever else might be occupying her mind. But as the months went by, those little instincts started to gnaw at me. It all came to a head one Friday evening. I had planned a nice dinner at home, hoping to reconnect after a busy week. I came home early, eager to surprise her with her favorite meal. But as I entered our house, I found it eerily quiet. No sizzling pans or the sound of the TV blaring in the background. I called out for Jessica, but all I got in return was silence. I walked to the bedroom, but she wasn't there either. The bathroom door was slightly ajar, and I could hear the faint sound of her voice. I paused, thinking she was on the phone, but as I listened a little closer, I realized her tone was different. It was soft, flirtatious even. My stomach dropped as I strained to catch snippets of her conversation. "Yeah, I miss you too. Can't wait to see you again," she said, her voice dripping with a sweetness that felt alien to me. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Who was she talking to? My heart raced, and I didn't know whether to confront her right then and there or to keep listening. But I was frozen, caught between disbelief and a sinking dread. Long story short, I decided to confront her. I pushed the door open, and there she was, phone in hand, looking caught red-handed. Her eyes widened, and for a brief moment I thought I saw guilt flash across her face before it was replaced by a defensive demeanor. "Brett, what the hell, you scared me," she snapped, her voice sharp as if I were the intruder. I felt the anger bubbling up inside me, mixing with the confusion and pain. "Who were you talking to, Jess?" I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. "Just a friend," she insisted, but the way she shifted her gaze made my skin crawl. "Really?" "Because it didn't sound like a friend to me," I shot back. "It sounded like someone you're involved with." She hesitated, and in that brief moment I knew I had hit the nail on the head. The look on her face shifted from annoyance to a mask of defensiveness. "Why are you always so paranoid, Brett? I can't even have a conversation without you jumping to conclusions. It's ridiculous." The gaslighting was surreal. She quickly turned the situation around, and I almost started to doubt my own instincts. But I wasn't about to let her walk away from this. "I heard you, Jessica. I heard everything. You don't get to lie to me," I yelled, the hurt spilling out of me now like an overflowing dam. The confrontation escalated quickly from there. She denied everything, claiming I was overreacting, that I had no idea what I was talking about. But it didn't take long for her to slip up. "Maybe I do talk to a guy here and there. What's the big deal? It's not like you're perfect either," she retorted, her voice rising. Hearing her say that felt like a knife twisted further into my gut. I realized she had been living in some alternate reality where I was the one at fault. I wanted to scream that I had always been loyal, always cared, while she was out there betraying everything we built together. As the night wore on, we hurled accusations at each other, and the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. My wife was cheating on me. I felt like my whole world was crashing down around me, and I was left to pick up the pieces. I could feel a storm brewing inside me. A mixture of rage, betrayal, and an overwhelming sense of loss. I knew I had to devise a plan, something to regain control over this situation that had spiraled out of my hands. The emotional roller coaster I was on was just beginning, and I was determined to find out the truth behind her lies. What I had to do next would change everything. The days that followed were a blur of anger and confusion. After that explosive confrontation, we coexisted in a tense silence, our once cozy home now feeling like a battleground filled with unspoken accusations. Jessica's behavior shifted even further. She became more secretive, spending late hours at work and claiming she was busy with projects that never seemed to exist. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something from me, and it only fueled my resolve to uncover the truth. I decided to do some digging. I thought about my options, and it became clear that I needed evidence, something that would expose her betrayal for what it was. I started by going through her phone when she wasn't around. I felt like a complete creep, but the thought of her lying to me and possibly being with someone else made me desperate. If I was going to confront her again, I wanted to be armed with the truth. It took a few days, but I finally found my opportunity. One morning she left her phone on the kitchen counter while she rushed out, and I couldn't resist. I picked it up, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. What I found made my stomach turn. There were texts, lots of them, between Jessica and a guy named Mark. They were flirty and suggestive, filled with inside jokes and references to secret meetups. One text read, "Can't wait for tonight. Just you and me, away from all the drama." I felt the room spin as I read through them. How long had this been going on? How could she do this to me? I spent that day in a haze, replaying the texts in my head over and over. Each message felt like a dagger stabbing deeper into my heart. I took screenshots, knowing I'd need them for the confrontation I was planning. I was angry and hurt, but I also felt something else, an unnerving sense of power. I had the proof I needed, and it wasn't just hearsay anymore. It was right there in black and white. The emotional toll was heavy, but I was determined to put an end to the lies. I couldn't confront her immediately. I had to wait for the right moment. I needed to pick my battles wisely. So I stewed in my anger, plotting my next move like a chess player calculating their opponent's strategy. A few days later, I found my moment. Jessica came home late from work, her cheeks flushed, a sure sign that she'd been out with friends. I could smell the faint hint of perfume that definitely wasn't hers. It was a little too sweet, a little too floral. I felt my blood boil. As she poured herself a glass of wine and plopped down on the couch, I knew it was now or never. "Jess, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but low. "About what?" she replied, her tone dismissive as she flipped through a magazine. "About your texts," I said, trying to keep my voice calm even though I was shaking inside. Her eyes widened and I could see the color drain from her face. "What are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me. I know about Mark." "I saw your text," I said, pulling out my phone. The screenshots were there, ready to be shown to her, ready to expose the truth. Her expression hardened, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the confident woman I had fallen in love with, now twisted into something defensive and cold. "You had no right to snoop through my phone. You're so paranoid, Brett. Paranoid. You're the one having secret conversations. How long has this been going on?" I pushed, my voice rising. "Nothing is going on, you're just twisting everything." She shouted back, her face flushed with anger. I slid the phone across the table towards her. "Read it, Jess. It's all there. You can't lie your way out of this one." She picked it up, her eyes darting back and forth as she read the messages. I watched as her expression shifted from anger to guilt and then to a defensive facade. "This doesn't mean anything. It's just flirting. You know how people are. Flirting. Flirting doesn't involve planning a secret meetup. I deserve better than this." I yelled, feeling the hurt boiling over. She put the phone down and crossed her arms, trying to regain her composure. "You're overreacting. You want to hear something crazy. You never pay attention to me anymore. You're so absorbed in your own world." It was classic deflection, and I could feel the anger rising again. "That's not an excuse for cheating. You don't get to throw that back at me." "I'm not cheating," she insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. "We're just friends. You're blowing this out of proportion." "Friends don't talk like that, Jess. Friends don't plan to meet up secretly." I took a deep breath, trying to keep the conversation from devolving into a shouting match. "Please, just be honest with me for once." She shifted uncomfortably, and for a moment I thought she might tell the truth, but then she opened her mouth and the lies came pouring out. "Okay, fine. I flirted a bit, but it doesn't mean anything. You need to trust me." Trust. That word hung in the air like a cloud of smoke. How could I trust someone who had shattered that bond so blatantly? I felt sick, but I couldn't let her see just how much her betrayal had affected me. I needed to gather my strength and make my plan clear. "Jessica, I don't think I can trust you anymore. I want you to think about what you've done and what that means for us," I said, my tone steady but filled with sorrow. "I'm worth more than this." As I walked away from the confrontation, my heart felt heavy and anger mingled with the deep sadness of betrayal. I knew I had to make a choice soon, one that would alter the course of my life forever. This was no longer just about confronting Jessica. It was about taking control of my future and finding a way to heal. The days after the confrontation felt like a crushing weight on my chest. Jessica and I shared the same space, but we were miles apart emotionally. The tension in our home was palpable, and every interaction felt like a performance. Neither of us knew what to say or how to address the elephant in the room. I could see the flickers of guilt in her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking, but she would quickly shift back to her defensive stance. I needed to figure out my next steps, and I started considering my options seriously. I was angry, yes, but I was also utterly heartbroken. I had given Jessica everything, my love, my loyalty, my trust, and she had tossed it aside like it meant nothing. I spent sleepless nights thinking about our life together and how everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. One morning, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. I found myself wandering through the park where we had often enjoyed lazy Sundays together. Memories flooded back, laughing over ice cream, holding hands, discussing our dreams. It all felt so distant, like it belonged to someone else. I sat on a bench, grappling with the realization that I had to confront what I wanted. And then there was Mark. Who was he? Why had Jessica chosen to confide in him? The more I thought about it, the more I felt the urge to dig deeper. I needed to know exactly who this guy was and how serious this affair had become, if it even was an affair at all. I felt a strange mix of paranoia and determination. The images of them together flooded my mind, and I had to push them away. I was done being the victim in my own story. That night, I decided to do some sleuthing. I had gotten the number from Jessica's texts, and after a moment of hesitation, I punched it into Google. A few clicks later, I found his social media profile. Mark was younger, in his late 20s, and immediately I couldn't help but feel the pang of jealousy. He was handsome, athletic, and had that cocky charm that I could see would draw someone like Jessica in. I spent the next few hours scrolling through his profile, absorbing every detail. I couldn't believe what I was seeing: pictures of him hiking, partying, and a few selfies with friends looking like the life of the party. And then I stumbled upon a photo of him and Jessica, arms wrapped around each other, grinning like they were in a world of their own. The caption read, "Best day with my favorite person." My heart sank. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I needed to be armed with more than just suspicions. I needed to have the proof, not just for my sake, but for her to understand the gravity of what she was doing. I knew I had to approach this differently. I didn't want to come across as vengeful. I wanted her to understand the impact of her actions. The next day I sat her down again, using the same couch where we'd had our last explosive argument. "Jess, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What now?" she replied, crossing her arms defensively, a look of annoyance creeping across her face. "I found out more about Mark," I said, watching her reaction closely. Her brow furrowed and a flicker of apprehension crossed her face. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to feign ignorance. I pulled up the photo on my phone and showed it to her. "You're clearly more than just friends. This isn't just flirting. You call this a friendship." Her face turned a shade paler as she glanced at the screen, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind. That's just one picture. It doesn't mean anything." "Not just one picture, Jess. You've been talking to him behind my back. You've been planning to meet him. This isn't just nothing, this is betrayal," I said, my voice rising slightly, but I tried to keep it in check. She looked at me, her eyes widening in desperation, searching for a way to deflect the blame. "You don't understand. You're suffocating me. I don't want to be tied down, and you never listen." "Stop, just stop," I interrupted, feeling the anger boil over. "This isn't about me not listening. This is about you making choices that hurt us both. If you don't want this marriage, then we need to have that conversation." "Are you seriously giving me an ultimatum?" She shot back, her voice laced with disbelief. "I'm not giving you an ultimatum. I'm asking you to be honest. Do you want to be with me, or do you want to pursue whatever this is with Mark?" I laid it out there, feeling the anxiety wash over me. It was a question I needed the answer to, not just for me, but for both of us. She hesitated, her face twisting with a mix of confusion and frustration. Finally, she muttered, "I don't know, okay. I just don't know what I want. That admission hit me hard. So, you're telling me you don't know if you want to be with your husband or some guy you've been flirting with. That's a pretty clear indication of where you stand, Jess. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us. I realized that I was at a crossroads. I could either fight for this marriage or I could let it go. But that would mean making decisions that could hurt us both, and I needed to think carefully about what came next. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't stay in limbo, waiting for her to make up her mind. I would give her a choice, but it would be my choice to make as well. If she wanted to explore this relationship with Mark, she could, but I wouldn't be a part of it. I was done living in uncertainty, and it was time for me to reclaim my power. The next few days felt like a waiting game, and I was determined to put an end to the uncertainty once and for all. Jessica was acting like nothing had changed, but I could see the cracks in her demeanor. She was quieter, often lost in thought, but I knew she was grappling with the implications of our last conversation. I had given her a choice, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still trying to manipulate the situation, trying to play both sides. I decided to take charge of my life. I reached out to some friends for support, confiding in a couple of them about what I was going through. I needed to talk to someone who could provide perspective and advice. My buddy Aaron had always been the level-headed one in our group. He was a great listener and offered straightforward advice without sugarcoating anything. "Brett, you deserve better than this," he said one evening when we met for drinks. "What's keeping you from just walking away?" "I don't know, man. I think a part of me is still holding on to the memories, the good times we had. I want to believe we can work through this," I replied, nursing my beer. "Look, it's one thing to work through issues, but this is different. She's been dishonest. You've got to think about your own self-worth." 2. His words resonated deeply with me, sparking a realization that I had been putting Jessica's needs above my own for far too long. It was time to prioritize my own happiness and well-being. I left the bar feeling more empowered, as if a weight had lifted off my shoulders. That night, I drafted a message to Jessica, asking her to sit down and talk again. But this time, I wanted to lay everything out on the table. No more running in circles, no more deflections. I needed clarity, and I needed her to understand the gravity of her choices. When she walked in from work the following day, she looked frazzled, her hair slightly disheveled. I took a deep breath, my heart racing as I prepared myself for what was about to happen. "Jess, we need to talk," I started, my tone firm but calm. She rolled her eyes, the same defensive posture creeping back in. "What now? More accusations?" "No accusations, just the truth," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've thought a lot about what you said and what this is doing to us. I'm at a point where I need to know what you want." "Brett, I don't want to make a decision right now. This is all so overwhelming," she said, her voice laced with frustration. "Overwhelming? You've had weeks to think about it. You've been talking to Mark and you've been distant with me. It's all there, Jessica." I leaned forward, my heart pounding. "You need to make a choice. You can't have it both ways." She looked at me, her expression shifting from anger to vulnerability. "I don't want to lose you, but I'm confused. I've never been in this situation before." "Confused about what?" "About choosing between a husband who has loved you for years and some guy you've been flirting with. You need to realize what you're risking," I said, trying to keep my composure. I know," she snapped, her frustration boiling over. "But I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. You think I wanted to hurt you. This wasn't planned. It just happened." "Just happened?" "Jess, that doesn't justify what you did. You went out of your way to hide it from me. That's not just a mistake, that's a choice," I shot back, feeling the hurt bubble up again. She sighed deeply, the fight slowly leaving her. "I never wanted to hurt you, Brett. I was looking for something I thought I lost, a sense of excitement maybe, but I didn't mean for it to go this far." "So you let it go too far then. You've betrayed my trust, and I need to know if you care enough to fix this. Are you willing to fight for us?" I asked, the knot in my stomach tightening. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I feel so lost." Tears began to flow, and in that moment I saw the cracks in her armor. She was more than just a betrayer. She was a flawed human being grappling with her own demons. But I couldn't let my compassion blind me to the reality of our situation. "I think you need to take some time to figure out what you want, Jess," I said gently. "I can't keep living like this, waiting for you to make a decision. I need space to think about what I want too. What are you saying? You want to break up? She asked, her voice trembling. I'm saying that I need to step back. If you want to pursue something with Mark, then you should do that. But I won't be here waiting while you decide whether you want to be with me or not, I stated firmly. She looked at me, her expression a mix of disbelief and sorrow. You can't just walk away. Maybe that's what I need to do, I replied, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over me. It was hard, but I knew I had to prioritize my emotional well-being. The moment hung heavy in the air, a mixture of regret, sadness, and the weight of realization. Jessica opened her mouth to protest, but I could see she understood. She was cornered, and the truth was that we stood on very different paths now. As I turned away, I felt the gravity of what I had just done, setting boundaries, reclaiming my power. I had given her the chance to be honest, and I had given her the choice. Now, it was up to her to decide what kind of life she wanted to lead. I was finally ready to embrace whatever came next. With or without her, I knew my journey was just beginning, but I was determined to walk it with my head held high. The days after I set those boundaries felt surreal. I moved through the motions of everyday life, but everything had changed. Jessica and I spoke less frequently, and the silence in our home was deafening. I took the time apart to reflect on what I truly wanted moving forward. I resumed my routine, picking up hobbies I had dropped during our years together. I started running again, getting up early in the morning to feel the chill of the fresh air hit my face. Each step felt liberating, a reminder that I was reclaiming my independence. I spent more time with friends, reestablishing connections that had faded beneath the weight of our marriage. But the loneliness was still there, gnawing at the edges of my newfound freedom. I missed the little things about Jessica, the way she would laugh at my jokes, the warmth of her embrace, the quiet moments we had shared together. I couldn't deny the love that remained, but it was intertwined with betrayal, and I struggled to find a way to reconcile those feelings. Meanwhile, Jessica was a ghost in my life. I saw her a few times when we crossed paths at home, and each interaction felt like stepping on a minefield. She remained distant, often retreating to her room or spending time on her phone, and I could sense that she was still communicating with Mark. Each time I caught a glimpse of her phone, my heart raced with anxiety. But I had to remind myself that I had made my choice to step back, and I needed to stick to it. One evening, while I was getting ready for bed, I heard a knock at my bedroom door. It was Jessica. I caught sight of her red-rimmed eyes and my heart sank. She looked fragile, as if the weight of everything was finally crashing down on her. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I was ready for this conversation. "Sure," I replied, motioning for her to sit on the edge of the bed. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," she said, her voice shaky. "I don't want to lose you, Brett," I had to face the reality of what I did, and I see how badly I messed up. I never meant to hurt you. Her words offered a flicker of hope, but I remained guarded. "And what about Mark?" I asked, trying to remain calm. "What do you want to do about him?" "I ended things with him," she admitted, the tears flowing freely now. "I realized that I was just trying to escape from my problems. I wanted something exciting, but I lost sight of what mattered most. I want you, Brett. I want us." The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heartstrings, but I needed to hear more. "How can I trust you again, Jess? How do I know this isn't just another lie? I know I've destroyed your trust, and I have no right to ask for it back," she said, taking a deep breath. "But I'll do whatever it takes to earn it. I'll be transparent with you from now on. I want to go to couples counseling together. I want to show you that I'm serious about making this work." I felt a mix of emotions swirling inside me: hope, skepticism, and the remnants of heartbreak. I had to consider my own feelings carefully. "Counseling is a good start," I said, choosing my words delicately. "But I need time to figure out if I can really forgive you and trust you again." "I understand. I'll give you all the time you need," she replied, her voice filled with earnestness. "I just want you to know that I'm committed to changing. I want us to work on our marriage." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. There was a part of me that wanted to believe her, to rekindle the love we once shared. But I also knew that healing would take time. I had to see consistent effort from her, and I had to be patient with myself as well. We spent the next few hours talking, going over the events that led us to this point, and it felt like the first time in a long while that we were truly communicating. I shared my feelings of betrayal and confusion, and she listened, genuinely remorseful. As we talked, I could see glimmers of the woman I had fallen in love with, the one who had always been supportive and passionate. But I also recognized the need for boundaries, ones that I had to enforce to protect my own heart. In the days that followed, we started the process of attending counseling together. It was uncomfortable at first, but I could see that Jessica was genuinely committed to changing and rebuilding our marriage. The therapist guided us through exercises that challenged both of us to confront our fears and insecurities while fostering open communication. As the sessions progressed, we delved deeper into the reasons behind her infidelity and my feelings of neglect. It became clear that we both had contributed to the issues in our marriage, even if the betrayal was primarily Jessica's. I learned to express my needs more clearly, while she began to acknowledge her struggles with commitment. Little by little, we started to rebuild our connection. We had long conversations, shared laughter, and slowly began to rediscover the joys of being together. I still felt a lingering doubt, but with every genuine effort she made, the walls around my heart began to crack. But I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Trust isn't built overnight, and I would have to keep my eyes open. As we continued this journey together, I reminded myself that I was worth the effort, and that I had the right to prioritize my happiness. Whether our marriage would come out stronger or ultimately lead us to separate paths remained to be seen, but for now, I was committed to giving it a fair shot. It was a process of healing, and I allowed myself to feel hopeful. Perhaps we could continue to grow and overcome this together, but I was also prepared for the possibility that sometimes love isn't enough to save a relationship. Either way, I was ready to face what came next with my head held high. As we continued our therapy sessions, I began to notice a gradual shift in our relationship. The sessions were tough but necessary, and I appreciated the safe space they provided for both of us to express our thoughts and feelings. Jessica was making more of an effort to be present, to listen, and to understand my perspective. I could see that she genuinely wanted to make amends, and it was enough to spark a flicker of hope within me. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, we started talking about our goals for the future. It felt like we were laying the foundation for a new beginning, even if the past still lingered like a shadow. "What do you want for us, Brett?" she asked, her eyes earnest and searching. "I want us to be happy again," I said, my heart racing. "But I also want to make sure we're addressing the problems that led us here. I want to feel secure in our relationship again." "I want that too," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm committed to rebuilding your trust, and I want us to start fresh." Her words resonated with me, and for the first time in a long while I felt a sense of excitement wash over me. It was a small spark, but it was there. As the weeks went by, we began to rediscover each other in ways I hadn't thought possible. We started going out on dates again, something that had become a distant memory. Each time we went out, I felt a mix of nerves and anticipation, unsure of what to expect. During one of our dates, we were sitting on a terrace overlooking the city, the sun setting in hues of orange and pink. It felt surreal, almost like a scene from a movie, and as we laughed at a shared joke, I realized something had shifted. I was seeing glimpses of the Jessica I had fallen in love with, the one who was fun, spontaneous, and full of life. But with every joyful moment, doubt still lurked at the back of my mind. There were nights when I woke up in a cold sweat, the memories of her betrayal playing out like a horror film. I knew it would take time, and I had to be patient with myself as much as I was patient with her. As we reached the 3-month mark of our counseling sessions, we had a breakthrough. Jessica began to share her feelings about her own insecurities and fears that had contributed to her actions. "I think I was trying to fill a void that I didn't even know existed," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought I wanted something exciting, but I realized that excitement doesn't equal happiness." Hearing her vulnerability made me realize that we were both on the same journey of growth. I was learning to communicate better while she was confronting her own demons. It was a delicate balance, but we were navigating it together. One day, I decided to take a leap of faith. I planned a weekend getaway to a cabin in the woods, hoping to reignite that spark and create new memories. As we drove through the winding roads, I felt a mix of excitement and fear. What if this was just a temporary patch over the cracks? But I pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on the journey ahead. When we arrived, the cabin was cozy and inviting, surrounded by towering pines and tranquil nature. We spent the first day hiking, exploring, and laughing more than we had in ages. That night we sat by the fire, the flames flickering and casting warm shadows. "I've missed this," Jessica said softly, gazing into the fire. "I've missed us." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I want to believe in us again, Jess. I want to trust you, but it's going to take time." "I understand," she replied, her eyes glistening. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn that trust back." As the fire crackled, I felt a sense of peace settle in. Perhaps we could rebuild what had been shattered. It wouldn't be easy, but the journey of healing had already begun. We were facing our challenges head-on, and that was a step forward. In the following months, we continued therapy and made conscious efforts to strengthen our bond. We went through ups and downs, but there was a newfound resilience in our relationship. I started to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and while the road to healing was still winding, I realized that we were both committed to embracing whatever came our way. Ultimately, I learned that love is not just about the good times. It's about facing the storms together and finding a way to navigate through them. The experience taught me about boundaries, self-worth, and the importance of communication. As I reflect on this tumultuous journey, I know that the choice to confront the betrayal was the right one. It opened the door to honesty and vulnerability, and it forced both of us to examine our relationship deeply. Whether we end up together in the long run remains uncertain, but I've come to understand that I'm strong enough to find my own path, regardless of the outcome. And so, as Jessica and I stood at the threshold of possibility, I felt a cautious sense of hope. We were rewriting our story, one chapter at a time, and I was ready to embrace whatever the next chapter would bring.